April 18th, 2020. Okay, so where were we? Right, when last we met, there were still a couple of dudes pushing 80, jockeying to become the Democratic standard bearer. There was a bug spreading around the world. Pretty much everyone was sheltering in place, and a parasite was living in the White House. My, how things have changed. Or not. Here we are 2 weeks later, and we have a presumptive nominee for the Dems, although Joe Biden at the top of the ticket was pretty much a foregone conclusion since November 9th, 2016. People are still getting sick and dying, although there seem to be fewer of the former, just as there are more of the latter, what with death being a lagging indicator and all. We're still sheltering in place, except where we aren't. And the president is still an idiot, whose only real skill seems to be an ability to incite his opponents with petty and petulant insults, and his admirers with even more petty encouragement to defy civil authority. So it's been, 6 weeks or so since most, but alas, not all, governors issued stay-at-home orders? Apparently, that's about 6 weeks too long for the give me liberty and give me death crowd, as protesters in several states have begun to demand an end to the lockdown so they can go back to doing what they do best, violating the personal space of others. And the intellectually and morally bankrupt moron in the Oval Office? Well, less than a day after issuing a fairly reasonable set of guidelines for communities to resume operation, the Twit president twittered that states like Michigan, Minnesota, and Virginia should liberate, in all caps, their citizens to go back to their offices, shops, and restaurants in an effort to prevent swing state economies from plunging even further in an election year. And in Jacksonville, Florida, another swing state, the beaches have reopened. I guess because the virus didn't kill all the spring breakers last month? In previous crises, war, famine, plague, societies have risen and fallen in ways that reflect their civilian, military, and religious leaders. For example, during World War II, the greatest crisis of the 20th century, the Allies were led by guys like Churchill, Roosevelt, and Eisenhower, men who took charge, made tough decisions, and rallied the populace and troops to defeat a common enemy that posed an existential threat to liberal democracy. Even Stalin, certainly no friend to liberal democracy, impressed upon his Soviet comrades the need to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds to fight what he called the Great Patriotic War. Say what you will, but if not for the fortitude of the Russian people, who suffered nearly 17 million casualties, it's doubtful that England could have held out until the Americans joined the war effort in 1942. Today, of course, this country is led by such luminaries as Hannity, Ingram, and Perot, who together are the intellectual equivalent of Moe, Larry, and Curly, only entirely lacking any of that trio's grace, charm, and humor. What about Trump, you ask? Come on, that ass clown of a buffoon, or is it the other way around, is so clearly unequal to the task at hand that his every utterance and thumb dance does nothing more than to parrot the fucks on Fox. For 3 years, pundits have accused Fox News of being nothing more than a mouthpiece for Donald Trump, while I've been arguing that it's exactly the opposite. And when you add the even loonier conspiracy theorists of InfoWars and the other nether region internet trolls who peddle nonsense like the virus being some kind of deep state hoax, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have precisely the leaderless vacuum we deserve. But is the alternative any better, or is it just less worse? And is there even a difference anymore? Look, it's not that I dislike Joe Biden, at least not nearly so much so far as I came to loathe Hillary. It's just that I think I like Biden better in theory than in practice. I mean, the guy really does have government experience, and an awful lot of it. He knows how Congress and the executive branch work, and how they don't. He's suffered through personal tragedy, including the loss of his first wife and 2 children. He's relatable in an overly handsy uncle sort of way, but he offers nothing novel or noteworthy in terms of policy. And if you've watched him for any length of time, say about 5 minutes, he comes off as doddering and at least a bit confused. So is confused better than ignorant, incompetent, and evil? Yeah, I guess. But as I've argued since the outset of these little essays, surely we can do better. Then I listen to what Donald Trump and his knuckle-dragging minions on Fox News and in the streets of Lansing have to say, and I guess we really can't.